racing friends, we are back with a really cool interview this week. I had the opportunity to talk with Liz Prestella. She's one of the lucky few who works as a NASCAR road crew member. Liz is a tire specialist with the Gaunt Brothers Racing and is in the crew with the NASCAR Cup Series driver Daniel Suarez. Liz started her own motorsports apparel company for a woman called Torque Clothing. She can do it all. So let's get to our interview. Hi Liz, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. I'm really interested in hearing your story. So why did you decide you wanted to work in the pit crew?
When I was about 12, I went to my first NASCAR race, and that really inspired me. I always watched racing with my dad and was always interested in it, and I always had a passion for cars. And once I went to my first track, I was completely hooked on just the mechanics that go into racing. And as I got older, I got more interested in it. When I was 15, I decided I was going to take auto shop so that I knew how to work on the cars as I was getting ready to get my driver's license, and I just fell in love with mechanics. So when I turned 18, my parents moved me 2,200 miles away from home, from California to North Carolina, so that I could pursue my passion and my dream of working in NASCAR.
Your parents are really supportive. So what made you decide to be a tire specialist?
What made me decide to be a tire specialist was more just fate, I guess you could call it. I started out as an interior person, which is putting the seats in, putting the seat belts, making sure the driver's comfortable, pretty much everything that is inside the cars. And I did a lot of decals, and I did a lot of mechanics, just front end. Did a lot of stuff with the springs. I did just about every aspect of the car. And as I went from one team to the next, I was changing tires, and it was with Derek Cope. Well, Derek Cope at the time had a partnership with Jay Robinson, who had a Cup car. And Jay had me pitting the Cup car as well. That was about 2 years in. And they needed a tire person to travel with them full time. And even though I had never done tires before, it was something that they needed, and they were willing to teach me. So I just learned that way.
That sounds like you really like trying new things, and it worked really well for you. What training did you do to be a tire specialist?
The training I did to be a tire specialist was more just learning how to measure the tires, how to use the system, how to do the air, what problems look like on the treads, like if a tread's coming apart or sidewall cracks. It's more just you learn through experience. There's no set handbook that says this is how you do tires, this is what you do. It's more you learn as you go.
I guess that's what they mean by learning on the job. So for young enthusiasts like me, can you tell me what you need to do to be selected on a pit crew?
You really just have to work hard. There's a lot of pit crew schools out there where you can go and they will teach you, but unless you put forth the extra effort, you're not going to make it to that next level. I changed tires from 2012 to 2016, and that was going over the wall, changing both rear tires. I stopped changing tires to pursue more of the mechanical side, because in racing, tire changes don't have the same lifespan as a mechanic does, because it's very abusive on your body. And I would rather have the long career in racing versus just a couple years changing tires. And once you get that initial training, you just have to keep getting faster and faster and making yourself stand out. And that's how you get on bigger teams.
So interesting. So you know I have to ask. Has any pit crew you worked on ever had an accident?
Yes. It was beginning of last year. My gas man actually got hit on pit road during a stop. I had just grabbed tire and was about 2 feet away from him, and a car spun and hit him and pinched him in the wall. That's the most recent one, and he's okay. At first, he's a former football player, so he's got a really high tolerance, and at first he got right up, started walking around, said he was okay, he was going to finish the race, and we made him go to infield care because of how hard the hit was. He ended up having both bones in his leg broken. He had to have several surgeries. He was in and out of the hospital, but he's back gassing. He went back beginning of this year, and he's just happy to be back at the track. And I've had other incidences with other guys that I've worked with. I've been fortunate that the worst I've had was I had some gas dumped on me, which it does burn, but it only took a couple weeks for the redness to go away just because it is a chemical. And I've had a little bit of fire come out of an exhaust and singe my hair, but we do wear fire suits, so I was protected.
Speaking of fire suits, what's like wearing one? Is it really hot?
It is very hot, but you learn to get used to it. The fire suits we wear are double to triple layered, and we also wear Nomex underneath them. And Nomex is an additional 3 to 4 seconds of fire protection, so that if anything does happen, we have that extra protection. There's also fire officials in each pit stall to protect us. When I changed tires, we weighed me before, and then with all my gear on, with the fire suit, the helmet, the knee pads, the radio, and it was about 20 pounds of gear. So that does also play into effect our tire changing training. We build extra muscle and extra strength just to make our jobs easier.
Can you tell us what is the fastest pit stop you have ever had? And what makes a fast pit stop?
When I changed tires, the fastest stop I did, I believe, was a 13.2. And that was just a very clean stop. I hit 5 lug nuts on, 5 lug nuts off. I didn't miss any. The hangs were clean. My runaround was good. And there's a lot of small things that go into having that fast pit stop. Usually a second to a second and a half to hit 5 lug nuts. So every time you miss, that adds a couple tenths to it. And that adds up bigger picture when you're only talking 13 and 14 seconds. With these new pit guns, they are a little bit slower, but not by much. The tire changers have just learned to adapt and do pit stops differently. And that's how they've maintained this aim speed.
Those are some fast pit stops. So overall, what is your favorite part about working in NASCAR?
I love being able to interact with the fans as well. There's always little girls in the garage that want to come talk to me. I always make sure and take my time to talk to the little kids. I met a girl last year in Pocono, and she was just fascinated with what I was doing with measuring the tires, and I let her help. And her dad sent my team a message a couple days later and said that that was the favorite part of the weekend for her, was getting to talk to me and getting to help me with the tires. So that's a lot of it too, is just the younger fans and getting to interact with them.
As a young fan myself, I know we really appreciate it when we can talk to members of a racing team. So, you are also an entrepreneur. What made you decide to start a clothing line?
When I started getting into working on cars, I was having a hard time finding stuff that fit because most of it's designed for men. And just as I progressed through my career, I was having an even harder time. I was spending $30 on a pair of pants that would last me 2 months, if that, and it was just getting really frustrating. So once I started going along and I got into racing and I got all these extra resources, there still wasn't any viable options for women that could hold up. And that's what made me want to start my clothing line, Torqued, and that was to make work pants for female mechanics that fit our bodies but still had the same features that the men's pants had, like the double knees, the extra pockets without being bulky. I do shirts, we have jackets, we have tank tops. We made some face masks during all this, and we're getting ready to expand some more on the women's stuff, but we try to focus on having apparel for women mechanics that are designed for women.
And lastly, what advice do you have for kids who are interested in working in a motorsports pit crew?
Is decide what you want to do and just go after it. If you live around a place that there's local tracks, I'd recommend going to local tracks and trying to help out with those teams and just trying to learn something. You need to have that experience to be able to get you to the next level. One thing about me that people like is I can literally do everything on the car, from the fabrication to the body work to the vinyl work to the mechanics to the interior. I've learned how to do everything that goes into these cars just so I have that knowledge base and so that people can utilize me for whatever they may need.
Such great advice. Liz, thank you again for taking the time to talk to me. You gave a lot of good insight. And that's the checkered flag for today. Signing off from F1 Sienna out.